look, Brooklyn Nets in just a couple of minutes, 7:30 Eastern here on ESPN. DeAndre Jordan in his 13th season in the NBA gonna have to get adjusted to one new teammate and James Harden. Whew, this is going to be fun to watch. NBA front office insider Bobby Marks joins us now live to talk about the money part of it, because you're our expert with contracts and salaries. So when you look at the Nets, Bobby, James Harden at $41 million a year, Kevin Durant $39 million, Kyrie at about $33 million. It's a lot of money. How did Brooklyn make this work?
Yeah, Sage, let's do some fun math right now. And when you look at that Harden number, which is at $41.2 million, the Nets had to get within 125% of that number, which means about $33 million in salary to go out. So when you start adding it up with the Karis LeVert contract and the Taurean Prince and the Jared Allen, you were just a little bit short. Now you add Rodions Kurucs to that deal, and it works by about $1.5 million. So $8 million difference. The Nets add about $15 million in additional luxury tax, but you get within that 125% number.
And now you're the favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. And now it is, according to many people, finals or bust for the Brooklyn Nets. What about Indiana and Cleveland? We're not hearing many people talk about those two teams right now as the Pacers get rid of Victor Oladipo, disgruntled, and a big salary on an expiring contract. Get Karis LeVert, as you mentioned. Cleveland, a big man in Jared Allen. The financial aspect of it for these two teams is what?
Well, for Indiana, it protects them with Victor Oladipo, who is going to be a free agent in 2021 and this offseason, where he could have commanded a salary in that $30 million range. You get Karis LeVert back, who's earning $16 million under contract for 2 more years past this season. And the same for Cleveland. They've got Andre Drummond, who is going to be a free agent. Jared Allen's a restricted free agent, will probably cost you half of that amount. So it protects both teams, for the future here.
That's a lot of money. At the end of the day, it seems like everybody got better. Thank goodness we have Bobby Marks to break that down for us. Bobby, thank you so much for the latest on this really historic day in the NBA. A lot of money, Kevin, a lot of players changing teams. Did you know KD, Harden become the 5th pair of teammates in history to play on the same team after winning multiple scoring titles? How does that play out for your Sixers now?
Not good, but I will hang on Rachel Nichols saying one specific thing.
What's that?
Who's the Nets have acquired James Harden, part of a 4-team trade, which features a handful of first-round picks going to the Rockets, according to Adrian Wojnarowski and Ramona Shelburne. The Rockets also acquiring Victor Oladipo from the Pacers. Pacers getting Karis LeVert. The Cavaliers will receive Jared Allen to solidify their future at the center spot. He is only 22 years old. For much more on the blockbuster trade, Tim Legler joins us now on Sports Center Legs. Initial reaction here on Harden landing in Brooklyn to team up with Kevin Durant.
Not shocked, obviously. I mean, they've been talking about this all season, really. And after what happened last night, and really what's going on with James Harden over the last week, he for all intents and purposes, he quit on that team. And it became a situation that's untenable. There's toxicity now in the locker room. You can't go on like that. So you knew it was going to happen. It was going to be imminent. And this was the team that was rumored because of the assets that they had to give up. And ironically, it wasn't some of those other younger players that were rumored initially with Spencer Dinwiddie and Jared Allen and LeVert talked about all going to Houston. Instead, little different approach here. You end up with Oladipo and a bunch of picks. So this is really about the future more than anything. As far as the Nets go, Kevin, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, look, this can't work. You can't say that about 3 guys capable of giving you 100 points on a given night. Their offense might be so good that they can overcome some of their issues they're going to have, because there are going to be issues from a personality standpoint, from a ball dominant standpoint, from a supporting cast standpoint. This is going to be a predictable team offensively. But listen, you can be predictable if your shot makers are that elite some nights. And so I gotta wait and see. I can't pass judgment on whether this can work or not. I'm skeptical, let me tell you that.
Okay, we can't predict, and we're going to have to wait and see, too, on the status of Kyrie Irving, on when he will return to the lineup on this roster. Meanwhile, the Sixers, they were in the mix for Harden, and Philly doesn't get him. But they have to now face him in the East. From a Philly standpoint, what's your reaction to them being in the mix and then failing to acquire Harden?
I think ultimately it's better for the Sixers that it didn't happen that way. I personally believe that they would have been a little bit closer with Harden and Embiid as opposed to Simmons and Embiid, because the one thing the Sixers don't have is a guy that can really score from anywhere on the floor, depending on the situation, with a live dribble. They don't really have that, despite what you saw out of Joel Embiid last night playing point guard in the fourth quarter of that game. They don't really have that on the roster, so Harden puts you closer. But I also think internally there had to be discussions. What does this do to our culture and what we really want to do going forward offensively? Is this something Joel Embiid's going to buy into, a guy that plays the way that James Harden does? There still might be something coming for the Sixers that Daryl Morey sees that might be a better opportunity to put them over the top. But I think they like what they've seen early in the year, and they're going to wait a little bit more time. But ultimately, I just think it was too much of a culture change bringing in James Harden to play with Embiid, and that's why ultimately they didn't throw in a couple extra pieces to make that deal happen.
Okay, we will see how this continues to play out with Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey in Philly, but we can say one thing. Joel Embiid's playing like an MVP. He needs some help. Legs, thank you.
The deal was kind of in the works, and James Harden knew that. But if you're just catching up and hearing it for the first time, this specifically is what Harden said last night after getting blown out by the Lakers that caused ripples.
We're just not good enough. We don't obviously chemistry, talent-wise, just everything. And it was clear. I love this city. I literally have done everything that I can. I mean, this situation is crazy. It's something that I don't think can be fixed. So, yeah.
In my 11 years being in the league, I've been on a team like that my first 5 years where it was all about me, not about the team. And that hurts. And it brings everybody down. So when we can get all on the same page, we can be something good here. And we can't dwell down on it because it's only been 9 games. Like, come on, man. You want to jump off the cliff off of 9 games? There's a lot of basketball still to be played.
John Wall and James Harden last night. For much more, let's bring in Stephen A. Smith. You're the first person I thought of when I heard about this trade. Your reaction to this blockbuster move?
Well, first of all, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's finals or bust. You assemble Lethal Weapon 3, which is what we could easily call them right now. There's simply no excuse not to come out of the East and advance to the NBA Finals. There really is not an excuse. James Harden's getting paid $40 million this year. Kevin Durant's getting paid $39. Kyrie Irving is somewhere we don't know at an undisclosed location doing whatever it is that he does, but still getting $33.4 million this season. In the end, what it comes down to is that all of these brothers are big-time basketball players. This is Kevin Durant's franchise. James Harden would not be there unless Kevin Durant wanted him to be there. It's definitely a security blanket in case things continue to fall in the wrong direction as it pertains to Kyrie Irving. It's going to come down with James Harden and Kevin Durant. And let me be very, very clear. We can sit up there and we can talk about James Harden all we want to. The man has averaged over 30 the last 3 years, at least 29 the last 4 years, at least 28 the last 5 years. He is one of the most prolific scorers this game of basketball has ever seen. And more importantly than that, he loves to play the game of basketball. He doesn't engage in load management. He believes in showing up. You can worry about a few things all you want to about James Harden, but the one thing you do not have to worry about is him showing up to play the game of basketball because he wants to play. He wanted to play with Kevin Durant, at least until this morning after all of this Kyrie news percolated. Then Philadelphia was obviously an option with Daryl Morey, his former president of basketball operations in Philly, along with Doc Rivers, the head coach there now. But everybody that knows anything about the NBA right now knew that Tillman Fertitta, the owner for the Houston Rockets, would never allow James Harden to end up in Philadelphia with Daryl Morey. They end up going to the finals. His former star, his former president of basketball operations. Folks in the NBA community firmly believe Philadelphia was never going to be an option no matter what James Harden wanted. But obviously, he wants and loves the idea of playing with Kevin Durant.
So the Rockets get a boatload of picks here. You mentioned the Nets and you think it's championship or bust. What advice would you give Steve Nash? First-time head coach Steve Nash now guiding this team with these stars.
Embrace James Harden and Kevin Durant and let Kyrie Irving figure it out. You can't trust Kyrie Irving right now. It's just that simple. We're not questioning his greatness as a basketball player, his box office appeal, where his heart is at because it's in the right place. But clearly at this particular moment in time, basketball is not the priority it needs to be. And if you're Steve Nash coaching on any level for the first time in your career, you do not need to be concerned about what he's going to do, when he's going to do it, how he's going to do it, etc. You know you can trust Kevin Durant to show up and play ball if he's healthy. You know you can trust James Harden to show up and play basketball for this franchise if he's healthy. You focus on that and the other parts that you have, and if Kyrie Irving wants to come back, when he wants to come back, put the onus on him to fit in. That's what you do if you're Steve Nash at this particular moment in time, because Kyrie Irving has already shown you you're not the priority you need to be. So why make him one?
All right, we're coming back with much more from Stephen A. later on this program. Also, top of the hour, it's your show, SportsCenter. Looking forward to that. We're looking at Houston's lineup that not only looks drastically different from last season. Remember, they were the ones that were in win now, acquiring Russell Westbrook this offseason.